My phone buzzed on the bar next to my beer. It was a random number, no caller ID. Ignoring calls from unknown numbers was a habit I picked up after the breakup. But something about it, a nagging feeling. I slammed my beer down, grabbed the phone, and answered. Hello? Static. Then a muffled voice, barely audible. Mark, listen, it's about Sarah. The line went dead, my stomach lurched. Sarah, my ex-fiancée, the woman who shattered my trust into a million pieces. A million possibilities raced through my mind. Was it her? Was she trying some new tactic to win me back? Had she finally lost it? No. This felt different, urgent, a cryptic message about Sarah, delivered anonymously? This was something else entirely. I slammed my half-beer on the counter, ignoring the bartender's questioning stare. Sorry, gotta go, I muttered, throwing a crumpled bill on the bar. The message could be a prank, a cruel joke. But what if it wasn't? What if it held a piece of the puzzle I'd been missing all this time? I sprinted out of the bar, ignoring the cool night air, and hailed a cab. Sarah had moved away a few months back, supposedly for a fresh start. Did she have something to do with this message? The thought sent a fresh wave of anger through me. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance I'd been waiting for, a chance to understand her betrayal, a chance for some semblance of closure. The cab ride felt like an eternity. Finally, I reached my apartment building, fumbling with my keys as adrenaline pumped through my veins. Inside, I rushed to my laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I needed to find the source of the message. It was a long shot, but maybe there was a trace, a digital footprint I could follow. Hours melted away as I dug through online records, frustration mounting with every dead end. Just as I was about to give up, a notification popped up on my screen. An email, from the same anonymous address used for the phone call. My heart hammered in my chest as I clicked it open. The email contained a single line. Meet me at the pier, midnight. Come alone, it's about Sarah. The wind whipped my hair as I stood on the pier, the icy December air biting at my exposed skin. Midnight. Not a soul in sight, except for a lone figure huddled at the far end. My gut churned. Was this a setup, a bad idea? The email offered no details, just a cryptic message about Sarah. Doubt gnawed at me, but the memory of the video, the raw betrayal, fueled my resolve. I took a deep breath and started walking, boots crunching on the frozen wooden planks. As I got closer, the figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, bundled in a thick coat, her face obscured by a scarf. You Mark? She rasped, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. Yeah, I replied cautiously. Who are you? What's this about Sarah? She hesitated, then pulled down the scarf. Moonlight revealed a face etched with worry, late 30s, eyes filled with a nervous energy. My name's Lisa, I used to work with Sarah at her old company. My brows furrowed, used to? Yeah, I quit a few months ago. Look, this isn't easy, but you need to know something about Sarah's situation. She gestured for me to follow her further down the pier, away from the faint glow of the distant city lights. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. This whole thing felt sketchy, a scene straight out of a bad movie. But the mention of Sarah's situation, whatever that meant, kept me rooted to the spot. What situation? I pressed, my voice tight. Lisa stopped and turned to face me. The guy in the video, the one Sarah was with, he wasn't who you thought he was. He was trouble, big trouble. My heart hammered in my chest. Could this be real? A shred of hope, a sliver of doubt about Sarah's motives, flickered within me. What do you mean? Explain. Lisa took a deep breath, her voice dropping to a hushed whisper. He was using her, Mark. Using her for some kind of business deal. She thought she was in love, but the rest of her words were drowned out by a sudden, ear-piercing screech. Headlights cut through the darkness, blinding for a moment. Then a car screeched to a halt right behind us on the pier. A dark figure emerged, a menacing silhouette against the car's headlights. "There you are, Lisa," the figure snarled. "And who's your friend?" Lisa's face drained of color. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight with fear. "Mark, you gotta go. Now." My blood ran cold. The man approaching on the pier was the same one from the video, the one Sarah betrayed me with. His face, twisted in anger, sent a fresh wave of fury coursing through me. Lisa's grip on my arm tightened, her voice a choked whisper. "He's dangerous, Mark. Please, just run." Run? Part of me wanted to bolt, to get the hell out of there. But another part, fueled by a primal urge for payback, wouldn't budge. This wasn't just about Sarah anymore. This was about Lisa, a stranger caught in the crossfire of her lies. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to understand the truth behind Sarah's betrayal. "Who is he?" I growled at Lisa, my voice surprisingly steady. "What's he after?" Lisa's answer was cut short by the approaching figure. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes flickering between us with a predatory glint. "Lisa," he snarled again, this time with a dangerous edge. "We need to talk." He didn't even acknowledge me. The disrespect, the arrogance of it, fueled my anger further. "You got something to say to me, pal?" I spat, stepping forward, putting myself between him and Lisa. He scoffed, a humorless laugh escaping his lips. "You? Who are you?" "Doesn't matter." I shot back, trying to project a confidence I didn't entirely feel. "But you seem to be forgetting something. This is a public pier." My words hung in the air, a tense silence settling over us for a beat. The man's eyes narrowed, his gaze lingering on me for a long moment. Then, a slow smirk spread across his face. "Public, huh?" he drawled. He reached into his pocket, his movements slow and deliberate. My heart hammered in my chest as I saw the glint of metal. Maybe so, but nobody saw us come here, did they? Panic clawed at my throat. This wasn't a bluff. This guy, whoever he was, wasn't afraid to get violent. A primal fear urged me to run, but the thought of leaving Lisa at his mercy held me frozen. I needed a plan, fast. Before things got completely out of hand. Adrenaline surged through me, the icy night air a stark contrast to the heat rising in my chest. This wasn't how I planned this. No grand confrontation, no dramatic reveal. Just me, a scared woman, and a potentially dangerous guy on a deserted pier with a glint of metal in his hand. Thinking fast, I glanced around. There, a few dozen yards away, a lone figure walked their dog, oblivious to the drama unfolding. "Hey," I yelled, my voice booming across the pier. The dog walker stopped, startled, looking in our direction. The man with the weapon, caught off guard, momentarily shifted his focus. It was my chance. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged forward, grabbing Lisa's arm and yanking her behind me. "Run!" I shouted, pushing her towards the approaching dog walker. Lisa stumbled, then regained her footing and bolted. The man reacted quickly, cursing under his breath. He shoved the weapon back in his pocket and sprinted after her. I watched in a mixture of fear and a strange sense of satisfaction. At least I'd gotten her out of the immediate danger zone. Now, it was me. The man was closing the distance fast, his face contorted in rage. My mind raced. Fighting him head-on was a fool's game. I needed to buy time, maybe attract more attention. Suddenly, a brilliant, albeit reckless, idea struck me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Right before the guy reached me, I held it up high and aimed it at him, the screen illuminating my face. "Hey," I yelled, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "You think I'm afraid to call the cops? We're on a public pier, remember?" The man skidded to a halt, surprised by my sudden action. He squinted at the phone in my hand, then back at me. His face was a mask of indecision, a war raging behind his eyes. You think anyone's gonna hear you out here? He scoffed, but there was a hint of doubt in his voice. There's someone right there, I bluffed, pointing towards the dog walker who was now watching the scene unfold with wide eyes and a leash held tightly in their hand. And guess what, I have your picture. It was a complete lie, of course. But the seed of doubt seemed to be planted. The man hesitated for another beat, then let out a frustrated growl. This ain't over, he snarled, throwing a final menacing glare in my direction before turning and disappearing into the darkness. My legs gave way, and I slumped down on the cold wooden planks, chest heaving, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It was over, for now. But the encounter left me shaken, the adrenaline slowly replaced by a cold dread. Who was that guy? What did he want with Sarah? More importantly, was Sarah truly innocent in all of this, or was there more to her story than Lisa let on? The night deepened, the icy wind whispering secrets I desperately wanted to unravel. The shrill ring of my phone tore me away from the mountain of paperwork on my desk. It was an unknown number again. Hesitantly, I picked it up. Hello? Mark, it's Lisa. My breath hitched. Lisa, the woman from the pier, the one who claimed Sarah was being used. A mix of emotions flooded through me, suspicion, a flicker of hope, and a healthy dose of caution. Lisa, I acknowledged cautiously. What is it? I need to see you. It's important, about Sarah. Her voice was shaky, laced with urgency. My mind raced, could this be a trap, another one of Sarah's schemes? But the desperation in her voice. Where, I finally asked, more out of curiosity than trust. The park, near the fountain. Noon, please, Mark, it's the only way I can explain. The line went dead, I stared at the phone, a war raging within me. Part of me wanted to run to the farthest corner of the earth and hide. The other part, the part that craved answers, the part that still held a sliver of hope for Sarah's innocence, couldn't ignore the plea. Noon, the park, a public place, at least. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my coat and headed out the door. The walk to the park was a blur. My mind replayed the events of the past few days, the cryptic message, the confrontation on the pier, the lingering questions about Sarah's involvement. As I approached the fountain, I spotted her sitting on a nearby bench, bundled in a jacket despite the unseasonably warm weather. Seeing her again brought back a wave of conflicting emotions. Hesitantly, I walked towards her. Lisa? I called out, my voice sounding rougher than usual. She looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and relief. Mark, you came. I stopped a few feet away, unsure of how to proceed. Why? I asked bluntly, why should I trust you? Lisa took a deep breath. I know it looks bad, but you need to hear me out. Sarah, she was caught in the middle of something dangerous. She didn't know what she was getting into. Her words were a bombshell. The image of Sarah, the woman I loved, the woman who betrayed me, being a victim, it was hard to swallow. But a tiny spark of hope flickered within me. Dangerous? I pressed, needing her to elaborate. Lisa nodded, her gaze dropping to her lap. The guy from the pier, his name is Alex. He works for a shady investment firm. He was using Sarah to get to some information her company had. My mind struggled to keep up. Investment firm? Information? This was a whole new level of betrayal, one I hadn't even considered. And Sarah? Caught in the middle of some corporate espionage? How do you know all this? I asked, suspicion creeping back in. Lisa looked up, her eyes pleading. I used to work with Sarah, remember? I knew about Alex, about his methods. When I saw you two together, the video. I knew I had to warn you. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. This has proof. Emails, recordings, everything Alex used on Sarah. The weight of the flash drive felt heavy in my hand. Proof. A chance to understand the truth, the whole truth. But with it came a new dilemma. Did I believe her? Was Sarah truly innocent, or was this all part of some elaborate scheme? Looking into Lisa's worried eyes, I knew I had a decision to make. A decision that could either bring closure, or plunge me deeper into this web of lies and deceit. The knock on my apartment door shattered the silence of the evening. My heart jumped into my throat. It had been weeks since the whole Sarah mess blew up. Weeks of radio silence on my end, a barrage of desperate voicemails on hers. Who could it be at this hour? Cautiously, I approached the door, peering through the peephole. My breath hitched. It was her, Sarah. She looked different, gaunt, her eyes rimmed with red, a stark contrast to the polished, confident woman I used to know. My stomach clenched. What did she want? After a beat of hesitation, I cracked the door open a sliver. Sarah? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark, please, she pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. Can we just talk? Part of me wanted to slam the door shut, to shut her out and all the memories she brought flooding back. But another part, a curious, almost morbid part, craved some kind of explanation. I sighed, stepping aside and opening the door wider. Come in, I muttered, surprised by the words escaping my lips. She entered hesitantly, her eyes flitting nervously around the room before landing on me. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Mark, I'm so sorry, she finally choked out, tears welling up in her eyes. Everything I did, it was a huge mistake. I never meant to hurt you. Her words felt hollow, empty promises after the betrayal. But a tiny voice inside me, the one that still held a flicker of care for the woman she used to be, prodded me to listen. Lisa, I started, my voice low and steady. She told me everything. About Alex, the lies, the whole mess. She flinched at the name, a flicker of shame crossing her features. I know, she shouldn't have involved you. But I was scared, Mark. Scared of Alex, scared of what he might do. I studied her, searching for a hint of truth in her tear-filled eyes. Was she genuinely remorseful, or was this just another act? So you left your job, moved away. I trailed off, letting the question hang in the air. A fresh start, she offered, her voice barely a whisper. That's all I wanted, a chance to outrun the mess I made. We stood there for a beat longer, the air thick with unspoken words and a tangled web of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe her, to see the woman I fell in love with again. But the other part, the one hardened by betrayal, couldn't shake off the lingering doubt. I need some time, Sarah, I finally said, my voice firm. A lot of time. Disappointment clouded her eyes, but she nodded in understanding. Okay, she whispered, turning towards the door. I understand. Just, please know that I'm truly sorry. With that, she walked out, leaving me alone in the echoing silence of my apartment. The door clicked shut behind her, a final punctuation mark on a chapter of our lives. But as I stood there, the weight of the flash drive from Lisa heavy in my pocket, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. The truth, whatever it was, still lay hidden within the digital files. And I was determined to find it. The familiar chime of my phone startled me from my work. It wasn't unusual for work emails to come through at all hours, but a nagging feeling told me this was different. I swiped the screen, a text notification blinking on the display. Unknown number. My stomach clenched, spam, probably, but lately, with everything that happened with Sarah, I couldn't ignore anything anonymous. With a deep breath, I tapped the message. He wasn't who you thought he was. Look into Alex's past, financial crimes, offshore accounts. She deserves better. The message was short, cryptic, but the implication hit me like a ton of bricks. Alex, the guy from the pier, the one Sarah claimed was using her, could it be true? Was there more to his story than a desperate attempt to get information? A surge of conflicting emotions flooded through me. Anger, for being so easily manipulated by Sarah's lies. A flicker of pity? The thought of her being used by someone like Alex left a sour taste in my mouth. But most of all, a burning curiosity. The truth, however ugly, was something I craved. Without wasting another minute, I pulled out Lisa's flash drive. It had been sitting untouched on my desk for weeks, a constant reminder of the mess Sarah had created. Now, it felt like the key to unlocking a mystery. I plugged the drive into my computer, a knot of tension tightening in my gut as the files loaded. Emails, documents, voice recordings, a treasure trove of information, all detailing Alex's shady dealings. The deeper I dug, the more my jaw clenched. This wasn't just some harmless flirtation. Alex was using Sarah, using her company's access to manipulate the stock market for his own gain. Disbelief warred with a strange sense of vindication. Sarah hadn't been completely innocent, not by a long shot. But she'd clearly been manipulated, played for a fool by this Alex character. Now, the question loomed. What did I do with this information? Expose Alex and his web of lies, potentially giving Sarah a chance to see his true colors? Or remain silent and let her face the consequences of her actions, consequences that could very well involve legal trouble? The decision hung heavy in the air, a test of my own integrity. Part of me wanted revenge, to see Sarah suffer for the pain she inflicted. But another part, a smaller, more forgiving one, couldn't shake the image of her tear-stained face, the regret in her eyes the last time I saw her. Taking a deep breath, I closed the laptop, the incriminating files burning a hole in my digital pocket. The decision wasn't easy, but I knew in my gut what I had to do. I wouldn't expose Alex, wouldn't be his puppet master. Sarah would have to learn the truth on her own, and face the music for her own choices. As for me, it was time to move on, to truly leave the past. The bathroom mirror lies. It says I'm fine, flawless mascara, the right pouty but not too pouty lipstick. But inside, I'm a wreck, just waiting for the first crack to show. It's stupid, I know. But this morning feels different. Heavy. Like the air's gone thick and sticky, and I might suffocate. My phone buzzes. It's Jason, of course. 3 years today, and all he can manage is a text? Running late, meeting's a drag. Dinner on me later? I tap out a quick, okay, wanting to throw in a smiley face, but it feels false. We used to be hard emoji people. Now, it's like I don't even recognize the language of our relationship anymore. God, I need more coffee. The office machine spits out sludge, but it's caffeine, so I'll take it. Everyone's in a chirpy mood, celebrating some sales thing that means nothing to me. My boss, with his wandering hands and, "You look amazing today, Sarah." Comments that make me want to shower in bleach, gives me a wink. I force a smile and try to blend into the wall. Gina. Bless that girl for being so relentlessly positive, intercepts me. Come on, Sarah, it's Friday, one drink to celebrate? Normally I'd be down for this, but today, a drink sounds like the worst idea ever. But saying no to Gina is like trying to stop a tornado with a kitten, so I end up in some noisy bar, sipping a gin and tonic that tastes like regret. Gina's all bubbly about some rondo she met, but her words are a blur, the music too loud. My head throbs, and this gnawing dread in my gut won't quit. It's not just the anniversary thing, even though Jason's texts stung like hell. It's like everything's off kilter. The more I drink, the less sense the world makes. I should get a cab, but I'm suddenly bone tired. Home it is, then. Stumbling past the doorman, I think I hear him laugh, but it could just be the ringing in my ears. The apartment is dark and cold. For a moment, I'm relieved Jason's not back yet. The quiet is good, but then it hits me again, that thick, suffocating feeling, only now it's worse, laced with loneliness. I should be happy, or at least pretending to be. We have a life people envy. But right now, standing in this empty, perfect apartment, all I feel is this hollowness inside, and I swear, if I listen hard enough, I can actually hear it echoing back. My head feels like someone used it for a drum solo all night. The world tilts on its axis as I sit up, and oh God, the nausea. Sunlight stabs through my eyelids and all I want is darkness, to disappear back into the oblivion of sleep. On the nightstand, a note from Jason. 2 sentences, the usual excuse of a client emergency. I snort. We're 3 years into this marriage, and I still fall for that? Then the hugs and kisses, tacked on like an afterthought. It taunts me, mocking the hollowness echoing between us. My phone buzzes. It's Mom. Just checking in, sweetie. Haven't heard from you in a while. The voicemail icon flashes and a familiar guilt twists inside me. She means well, but her voice is a chirpy accusation, making me feel like a terrible daughter. Delete. I can't deal with that today. The fridge offers nothing but wilted salad and a questionable yogurt. Whatever. I collapse on the couch, ordering greasy pizza because even the effort of microwaving leftovers is too much. The TV blares out some stupid rom-com where the girl always gets her happy ending, and it makes me want to hurl. To distract myself, I mindlessly scroll through Instagram. That's when I see it. Gina's post. It's all smiles and cocktails. The caption. Wild night with the best coworker. And there I am, in the background, blurred but unmistakable. But something's wrong. A flash of memory. A touch on my waist too insistent to be friendly. A laugh that rings all wrong in my ears. Had I been that drunk last night? Fear coils like a in my stomach. Don't worry, have your back. Gina texts back, and instead of relief, I feel my insides curdle. What the hell does that even mean? My hands shake as I type, trying to sound casual, but Gina's cryptic replies only make the knot in my gut tighten. Later, driven by a desperate, gut-twisting need for answers, I do the unthinkable. Jason's laptop sits on the coffee table like a silent accusation. I know this is wrong, an invasion. But the echo of emptiness, that hollowness inside me, it screams louder than my guilt. His call history is bland. Clients, colleagues, the usual. Emails are nothing revealing. But then. A ping from that stupid hotel booking app. A flash of ice shoots through my veins. The dates. They match Jason's emergency trip. And the guilt I feel isn't towards him, it's the sickening realization that somewhere, buried deep down, I always kinda knew something wasn't right. Stepping into the office is like walking into a firing squad. Eyes that were friendly yesterday now feel cold, assessing. Did they know about the photo? Is there a neon sign flashing, cheater's wife, above my head? I paced on my best. Everything's fine, smile, but it cracks under the weight of their stares. Whispers follow me down the hallway. Laughter that cuts off when I turn. The hushed tones like flies buzzing around a rotten piece of meat. My stomach churns, the pizza threatening a return appearance. Every glance feels deliberate, scrutinizing. Am I paranoid, or is everyone in on some sick joke at my expense? I find Gina by the water cooler, her usual chipper self replaced by wide eyes and a carefully blank smile. I corner her. What the hell is going on, Gina? That photo, the comments. Did you tell people? My voice cracks, a pathetic squeak betraying my desperation. Sarah, I don't know what you're talking about, she says, her voice too high-pitched. Then she does that thing people do when they're lying, the overcompensation. You were smashed. I just helped you get home safe. It's so obviously fake that it makes my blood run cold. That night, Jason calls. His voice is flat, almost bored. More apologies about being away, promises to make it up to me. All said with the emotional depth of a robot reading out instructions. My careful questions are met with curt answers. The warmth, the spark, whatever was left of it, is utterly gone. My dreams are a jumbled mess. Shadows dance just out of reach, whispers echoing my name, laughter that chills me to the bone. I wake up in a cold sweat, the sheets tangled around me like a shroud. Loneliness claws at me, a suffocating weight pinning me to the empty bed. Every inch of my life is now contaminated. I sniff Jason's shirts, that once familiar scent now overlaid with a hint of something feminine? Perfume I don't recognize. He's always on his phone, turning the screen away, the hushed murmurs sounding urgent, secretive. My old demons are back in full force. The ones that tell me I'm not good enough, not pretty enough, that of course this would happen. I push myself harder, the runs turning brutal, my reflection in the gym mirror a gaunt stranger. Then, like a gift from some twisted god of irony, proof. A receipt crumpled in Jason's pocket. That damned boutique hotel, the date a fiery brand matching his life-filled trip. It sits on the kitchen counter, an accusation in black and white. I don't confront him, I can't. Instead, the receipt becomes my talisman. A reminder that the hollowness echoing inside me? It's the damn truth. The world is a smear of colors, sounds, and a throbbing headache that won't quit. I feel, raw, exposed, like someone scraped away a layer of me, and what's left is this jittery bundle of shame and desperate need. The suspicion is a living thing now, clawing at my sanity. I need escape, not the wine and a crying rom-com kind. I need oblivion, a reset button for my brain. My phone is a lifeline to a world I never thought I'd explore. Late at night, the flickering screen illuminates words like discreet, fantasy, no strings. It's a shameful thrill, clicking through profiles of men hidden by blurry photos and suggestive usernames. Then, there's Mark. His words aren't like the others, the crude propositions or cheesy pickup lines. He seems lonely, his messages echo those hollow spaces inside me. We talk for hours, the anonymity is strange comfort. I confess things I've never even admitted to myself. The emptiness, the fear, the aching need to feel something. The idea of meeting him takes root, a reckless seed sprouting in poison soil. It's wrong, insane, but the thrill of it drowns out logic. I find myself dressing with a care I haven't felt in ages. Red lipstick, heels I haven't worn since our wedding. It's a performance, but for whom? Myself? Mark? Does it even matter? The bar is a swirl of smoky darkness. Mark is surprisingly handsome, a disarming smile cutting through my nerves. He's all attention, his gaze lingering a bit too long, his hand brushing mine. The drinks come quickly, blurring the edges of my guilt. His words are a balm. We talk not of sex, but loss, that hollowness you carry when everything feels like a lie. Sometimes, he murmurs, voice low, you just need a night to forget the maps, you know? And God help me, I do. We leave together, the city a neon dreamscape. His touch on my back is electric, and I hate myself even as I crave it. The hotel room is swanky, impersonal, and I drown in it. He is gentle, then rough, then it's all a blur of sensations that chase away the echoes, if only for a few desperate hours. Leaving the next morning is both a relief and a new horror. The walk home is a gauntlet of judgment. My reflection in shop windows mocks me, makeup smeared, yesterday's confidence a tattered rag. Yet, under the sickness, there's a flicker of something else. Power? Anger? A reckless defiance? I don't know, and honestly, I don't want to think about it, not yet. My skin feels like it's crawling with 1,000 invisible insects. Looking in the bathroom mirror is torture. The stranger staring back has smudged mascara, bloodshot eyes, and a hollowness in her expression that wasn't there yesterday. I scrub at my face, but the feeling won't wash off. Sneaking out of the hotel had been disgustingly easy. A mix of relief to be gone and a deep, gnawing shame battled for dominance as I hailed a cab. Mark's number was blocked before we even reached the highway. Like a bad habit kicked cold turkey, I craved the distraction of his messages even while hating myself for it. Home isn't a haven anymore. It's a suffocating echo chamber for my guilt. The scent of Jason's aftershave is a trigger, his favorite mug a silent rebuke. Our wedding photo, once a symbol of something good, now mocks me with its forced smiles and fake happiness. I shove it in a drawer, but the damage is done. Work is a special kind of torture. Every email feels like a coded message about my night, every ring of the phone makes me jump. Was it all a big joke? Had I imagined Gina's known smirk, the sidelong glances from colleagues? I swear I can hear their whispers even when I know they're talking about something else. Jason's back. At first, it's almost a relief. Then I see it. The distance in his eyes, the curt nod replacing his usual kiss. He asks about my week, and my lies stumble out, clumsy and obvious. His touch, a hand briefly on my shoulder, feels like a burning brand. Is it suspicion, or has he just given up on us? Sleep offers no escape. Nightmares twist fragments of the hotel room with flashes of Jason's disappointed face, the laughter from Gina's photo ringing in my ears. I wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, convinced the ceiling will cave in and crush me under the weight of my own deceit. Isolation eats away at me like acid, telling someone, sharing the burden, feels like the only way to breathe again. Gina is the obvious choice, but the image of her innocent smile flashes a warning in my mind. What if she wasn't protecting me that night? What if this was all a twisted game, and I'm the fool being played? The shame is a living thing now, consuming me. Is this what I've become? That desperate woman, seeking cheap thrills in anonymous hotel rooms? Yet, mixed with the revulsion is a flicker of something else. I felt alive that night, awful as it sounds. Is that worse than the numbness, the hollowness that was suffocating me before? My phone buzzes on the nightstand, the vibration a jolt of pure terror. I don't need to look to know who it is. The words on the screen sear into my brain. Having fun, sweetheart? Maybe we should do it again sometime. It's Mark. But this isn't the lonely guy from the bar. This voice is cold, cruel, with a hint of amusement that makes my blood run cold. The next message is worse. A photo. Me, in that damned hotel room, the look on my face. Shameful, desperate. He has more, he promises, even worse ones. My world implodes. This isn't just about a reckless one-night stand anymore. It's about ruin. My hands shake so badly I can barely type a reply. What does he want? Money, of course. It's always money. A sickening dread settles over me as I agree, promising to pay whatever it takes to make this nightmare go away. But he doesn't just want money. The demands keep coming. A weird favor. Delivering a package, no questions asked. Meeting someone in a shady part of town. Each task drags me deeper into his twisted game, and the fear is a constant companion, squeezing my heart until I can't breathe. Jason notices, of course he does. The chasm between us has grown so wide, it's its own kind of hell. His attempts at reaching out, at gentle questions, make me want to scream. If he only knew what I was becoming, the lies I spin with growing ease to cover my tracks. Then, a glimmer of something resembling hope. Gina corners me in the office kitchen, concern creasing her brow. Sarah, seriously, what's going on? You look like hell. Her words are an unexpected lifeline. Something snaps. Maybe it's the desperation or the strange flicker of trust one feels towards her now. Over stale coffee, I confess. Not about the hotel, that's too shameful, but about the blackmail, the fear, the feeling that I'm being crushed by forces I don't understand. Gina surprises me. There's no pity, no judgment. Just a steely edge to her voice as she says, "Okay, idiot, we're fixing this." Her practical, no-nonsense attitude is a balm. We make plans, clumsy ones at first, but the act of doing something instead of drowning in fear feels like breathing after being held underwater. Is she a true friend, or did she play a part in this from the start? The suspicion lingers, even as I cling to the only lifeline I have left. I'm living a double life. There's work Sarah, who's all fake smiles and, sorry, gotta take this as I duck into empty stairwells for hushed calls with Gina. Then there's the shadow Sarah, running errands for my blackmailer, heart hammering with a mix of terror and a fury so sharp it burns my insides. Gina's a godsend, I never imagined bubbly. Let's do karaoke. Gina would be hacking into IP addresses and tracing burner accounts like some dark web ninja. While I'm dodging Mark's increasingly bizarre demands, she's digging up his real life. Work emergencies are my pathetic excuse to disappear for hours. Jason watches me with those sad, suspicious eyes. It's torture. I want to scream at him, you have no idea what a real emergency looks like. Each light chips away at the foundation of US, whatever fragile thing was left. Mark delights in his power. Now it's not just cash, it's public humiliation. Picking up a package in a crowded bar, wearing a ridiculous hat. Leaving cryptic notes in places I know Jason sometimes frequents. The shame is a fiery coal burning through me. But with each encounter, a cold anger replaces the fear. I start paying attention. The way he moves, his nervous laugh, the too bright blue of his eyes. I log it all, feeding Gina fuel for her digital fire. And then. Breakthrough. I've got a name. Gina whispers during one of our panicked coffee breaks, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. It's not some random sleaze, Sarah. It's someone closer, potentially someone you know. My world tilts sideways. Someone I know? My mind races through suspects. Angry clients? Slimy coworkers? But Gina doesn't have all the pieces yet, only fragments of an identity she's carefully assembling. The waiting is worse than the knowing. Each text from Mark. Every ridiculous task takes on a new dimension. I scrutinize everyone colleagues, the barista who smiles too widely, even a grumpy-looking man on the bus. Is one of them the monster behind the mask? The suspicion seeps back home. An offhand comment from Jason, a casual question, and my mind races. Does he know? Is he playing some twisted game of his own? The once familiar landscape of our apartment seems littered with traps, every shadow a potential accusation. Gina's working overtime, piecing together digital crumbs. I'm fueling her frantic search with my own obsessive observations. It's a desperate bid to reclaim some shred of control, turning the hunted into the hunter. Though even if we expose him, then what? The destruction he's wrought on my life, my marriage. Can that ever be undone? The park bench is cold, the sun doing nothing to chase away the chill that's settled deep in my bones. But it's not fear I feel now, it's a strange, simmering rage. Part of me still can't grasp that I'm meeting my tormentor, the architect of my private hell, in broad daylight. He's late, of course. Power flex, making me wait. When footsteps crunch on the gravel, I don't look up. Let him sweat a little. Then, the voice, the one I hear in nightmares. Well, finally getting smart, sweetheart? I spin around, and the world explodes, because it's Ben, Jason's best friend since childhood. The guy who's been a fixture at every birthday, every holiday, every casual dinner in our home. Bile rises in my throat. I choke out. He just smirks, that arrogance I never noticed before oozing out of him. Disgust twists inside me, a sickening mix of revulsion and a blinding fury. He lays it all out. The petty jealousy festering for years, the resentment of Jason's perfect life, and his sick satisfaction in tearing it all down. His focus on destroying me, in particular, makes my skin crawl. Then, the flashback hits. Christmas party, Ben's hand lingering too long on my back. The accidental brush-ups in the kitchen. Jason's birthday, Ben's eyes hot on me as I laughed at a joke. It's all there, hidden in plain sight, the twisted puzzle pieces finally coming together. Ben's still gloating, thinking I'm broken. I put on my best act, play the scared, desperate woman. Inside, though, I'm ice-cold focused. Okay. Ben, I say, my voice shaking just enough, I'll get you more money. But I need a day or so. His ego swells, the bait is taken. I hand him the envelope Gina so carefully prepared. Fake cash with a tracker Gina built in, our little sting operation. As he greedily checks the contents, I dial 911, keeping my voice a terrified whisper, describing a robbery in progress. Then it's a flurry of blue uniforms. Ben's confusion, his shock, it's almost comical. Gina times it perfectly, hacked traffic cam footage plays on the officer's phone, showing Ben dropping blackmail notes, delivering suspicious packages. The look on his face when he finally comprehends the trap is almost worth the hell he's put me through. The aftermath is a blur. Ben hauled away, screaming accusations of a setup. Gina by my side, a whirlwind of efficiency as she talks to the cops, her bubbly persona a steel shield. And me, feeling strangely numb. Is this what justice feels like? It's not a joyous victory. It's more like staring at the ruins of a house after a hurricane, known you have to rebuild, but not yet certain how. The police station is a blur of fluorescent lights and stale coffee. I've lost track of how many times I've told the story, first to the cops at the park, now to this grim-faced female detective. Ben's rants about me setting him up fade into background noise against the pounding in my head. Then comes the moment I'd been dreading. The detective looks up and says, "We need to bring your husband in." Jason arrives, looking like he's aged 10 years in the past few hours. I watch his face shift from confusion to shock to a cold, gut-wrenching understanding. The confession spills out of me. Not dramatic, just exhausted. The hotel, the blackmail, Ben, every shameful piece of the puzzle. Jason doesn't rage. It's worse, it's the chilling emptiness in his eyes that breaks me. Our living room feels like a stage for a bad play. His voice is hoarse. Not just Ben, Sarah. You lied to me. Each word is a hammer blow. My apologies sound pathetic, even to my own ears. We spiral through the same circles of blame and betrayal, and with each turn, the distance between us stretches into an uncrossable void. He looks around at the space we built together, and it's like he's seeing it for the first time. All the holidays we had him here, he mutters. The unfinished sentence is more brutal than any accusation. We both know there's no fixing this, no going back. Gina, once again, is my lifeline. She takes over when I'm too numb to function. Lawyers, logistics, cutting through the red tape of divorce proceedings with a ruthless efficiency that's both alien and comforting. A strange sisterhood forged in the wreckage, I guess. The move is brutal, from our house, full of memories both good and now bitterly tainted, to a tiny studio apartment that echoes with its emptiness. Each unpacked box is a weight crushing my already fragile spirit. News trickles through about Ben, charges filed, bail denied, a very public fall from grace. In a normal world, I might feel vindicated, but all it is another echo. More destruction, different flavor. Sleep offers no respite, it's either nightmares that jolt me awake, gasping for breath, or a crushing exhaustion that makes even getting out of bed an act of will. Gina forces food on me, drags me out for walks when the crushing apathy threatens to swallow me whole. Is this rock bottom? Because if it is, it's a far darker and lonelier place than I ever imagined. The therapist's office smells faintly of stale tea and forced optimism. It's my least favorite place in the world right now, but Gina browbeat me into it, and I'm too drained to fight. The therapist, all soft smiles and concerned frowns, asks how I'm doing. I want to laugh, how am I doing? I'm a dumpster fire, that's how I'm doing. Instead, I dredge up the words they expect. Rebuilding, I mumble, one day at a time. It sounds so strong. Rebuilding from what? The ruins of my marriage? My reputation? My sense of who the hell I even am anymore? The divorce papers are no surprise, but the finality of it all still hits like a punch to the gut. Jason's neat signature, severing the ties that once held us together with a single stroke of a pen. We're strangers now, legally. The rumors swirl around me like hungry vultures. Whispers in the grocery store, pitying glances from people I once called friends. Did you hear about Sarah? They murmur, savoring the spice of my downfall. The cheating wife, that's all I am to them now. Some nights, the shame burns so hot that I swear it'll leave scorch marks on my soul. Yet, there are small flickers in the darkness. Lying awake in my too quiet apartment, I'm honest with myself. Okay, I was reckless, made stupid choices when I was desperate to feel something. But Ben, his malice isn't on me. I was a pawn in his twisted game, another victim of his need to control and destroy. Then there's volunteering at the women's shelter. Gina dragged me, and at first, I wanted to run. But hearing the stories, manipulation, gaslighting, all the forms of silent abuse. It's like hearing echoes of my own ordeal. And in those shared stories, a strange kind of healing begins. You're strong, an older woman with sad eyes tells me after I haltingly stumble through my story. Not the strength I would have chosen, but strength forged in a crucible of pain. I walk home that day with a different kind of ache inside me. Something shifts. It's not forgiveness of myself, not yet. But it's an understanding. Every scar tells a tale, and mine could have meaning. Gina, ever the whirlwind, finds me groups, survivors of abuse, outreach initiatives. I hesitate, then plunge in. Awkward, fumbling at first, but speaking my truth, however ugly, gives it less power. The final image isn't dramatic. It's me, standing at the window of my tiny apartment, looking out. No tears, no self-pity, just a quiet determination. The past is a wreckage, but the future, it's uncharted territory. And for the first time in a long, long time, it's my, another perfect vacation? I mumbled, scrolling through Instagram with a growing sense of, was it envy? Resentment? God, I hated how whiny I sounded even in my own head. But those filtered beach pics, all tan skin and smug smiles. It was a stark contrast to my Tuesday morning reality of soggy cereal and an overflowing laundry basket. Mark practically inhaled his dinner between calls. Sorry, babe, you know how it is. Big project. He kissed my cheek, leaving the faint scent of too strong aftershave and a whole lot of stress. Mark worked hard, a fact he was constantly reminding me of, and I should feel grateful. I did, kinda, but tonight, I also felt this nagging irritation I couldn't quite put my finger on. Volunteering at the school bake sale should have been a mindless escape. Yet, when Jake, hot dad of one of the kids, always with a crooked grin, asked, "Any chance I could buy you a drink sometime?" It felt like a lifeline tossed right when I was starting to drown in routine. Okay, maybe I was projecting a little. Still, a week later, sitting in that dimly lit bar, Jake's laughter felt like sunshine breaking through the Seattle gray I carried around inside. It was just drinks, nothing serious. I told myself that repeatedly, like if I said it enough, it would magically erase the fact that I was hiding it from Mark. The problem was, the more I saw Jake, the more I wanted. Every text was a thrill, every stolen kiss in his car a delicious secret breaking up the dullness of my perfectly normal life. I was on a roller coaster, but with the dips getting steeper and the rush turning into a kind of desperation I wasn't sure I liked. Jake's hand on my thigh was getting uncomfortably insistent. "What about Mark?" he whispered. For a second, guilt iced over me, then it melted just as quickly. Didn't I deserve some fun? A little harmless excitement just for me? Only, the harmless part was starting to feel like a lie I was telling myself. Mark had noticed the late nights, my distracted smiles hidden behind my phone screen. "You seem different lately," he'd said, and his tone wasn't accusatory, more perplexed. I'd snap back about his long hours, deflecting like a pro. Each new lie felt like a shard of glass in my gut. Then Jake started talking about us. Not just sneaking around, but a future. I froze. I wasn't divorcing Mark, this was just a detour? But what if this detour led straight off a cliff? I had no clue what to do, torn between an electrifying wrongness and a guilt-ridden reality. Suddenly, Jake's smile looked predatory, not flirty. Was I an idiot for not seeing it sooner? When he leaned closer, whispering, "You want this, Sarah," I didn't feel that fire anymore. Just fear. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and an even worse feeling in my stomach. No more, I'd told Jake with a firmness I didn't entirely feel. His answer was an icy, "Are you sure that's wise, Sarah?" That one sentence was enough to send me spiraling. The threat hung between us, unspoken but thick as smog. Was it a bluff? Jake didn't seem dumb enough to blackmail me outright, and who would he even tell? Then again, if he was as crazy as I suddenly suspected, reason flew right out the window. At home, every creak of the floorboards had me flinching. Mark went about his day, oblivious as ever, and the crushing weight of my secret became physically painful. We were two people living in different realities, only mine felt like a haunted house. "Family picnic this weekend?" Mark mentioned offhandedly. I faked a smile, dread twisting in my gut. Days trapped with no escape route, having to play the happy wife, when I felt like I was unraveling. All it would take was one look from Jake, one knowing smirk. Panic attacks became my new normal. A call with no one on the other line, a misplaced coffee mug. Was Jake messing with me? Or was the guilt consuming me, making me see threats where none existed? It felt like a sick game, and I was catastrophically bad at playing it. Mark's gaze lingered a second too long when I fumbled for an excuse for my dark circles. Did he suspect something? Maybe he'd noticed the missing money I desperately hoped Jake would assume was hush money. I hated the person I was becoming, liar, thief, paranoid mess. Wine became my only relief. One glass turned into 3, the buzzing in my head a temporary reprieve from the constant terror. Until, one shameful night, Mark found me slumped on the couch, an empty bottle evidence of my pathetic attempt at self-medication. His disappointment was worse than any screaming match. It was the quiet, sad pity that broke me. I tried to confront Jake, to demand he leave me alone. He laughed, a nasty sound. "We both know it didn't start with me, Sarah." Was he right? Was I looking for a way out of my life before he even stepped into the picture? The idea was so horrifying, I shoved it right back down. Sleepless nights, botched tasks at work, snapping at my son with the slightest provocation, the guilt curdling into self-loathing. This was what I deserved, right? An endless cycle of misery fueled by my own weakness. And then, it came. The note slipped under our windshield wiper, Jake's loopy scrawl unmistakable. "Miss me yet?" That's when the fragile threads holding me together snapped. Did I go to Mark, fall on his mercy, expose both my sins and risk shattering everything we had? But how much of that, everything, was even real anymore? Mark looked at me with something colder than anger. Was it disgust? Calculation? I should have been begging, pleading for forgiveness. But a shameful sliver of relief washed over me as he spoke. "We're done, Sarah. There's nothing left to discuss." He wasn't yelling. No tearful accusations. Instead, he was a lawyer again, the courtroom his domain. He laid out the terms. The house was his. Custody would be shared, but with heavy limitations on my part. Alimony would be adequate, let's say. I sat there numb, signing away the life I had systematically destroyed. Word spread like wildfire. "Did you hear about Sarah?" The whispers slithered through the grocery store aisles, laced with gleeful judgment. Mothers who'd shared playdate snacks now scurried away under the pretense of forgotten items. My own parents, oh, the shame I brought raining down on them, were a hurricane of disappointment and, I told you so, I became a cautionary tale, a small-town pariah. Then, came the vanishing act. Jake was gone. No more texts, no chilling notes. It should have felt like a win, yet his absence was a nagging reminder of my utter stupidity. Had he always planned this? Seduce a bored housewife, extort some cash, and skip town? I spiraled into internet searches, self-flagellation disguised as information gathering. The custody hearing was brutal. Mark, a pillar of respectability, his voice calm against my choked-up explanations. Every drunken night, every furtive text, every lie became ammunition. The judge, with her tired eyes and a seen-it-all air, barely let me finish before siding firmly with Mark. Nights in my empty apartment were the worst. No adorable child's chatter to distract me. Only the relentless ticking of the clock, counting down the hours until I could drown out my thoughts with wine again. It was pathetic, and I knew it. News of Jake came like a slap. Arrested in a different state, same mo. Targeting a vulnerable woman. Relief that I hadn't been his victim in a more horrific sense, warred with sickening realization of how easily I had been duped. My prince turned out to be a slimy toad. The therapist's office smelled of stale air and old carpet. I went because if I didn't, the social worker threatened to revoke my already limited visitation rights. At first, it was just word vomit. The lies, the shame, the gnawing fear that I was fundamentally broken. The therapist, bless her, had the patience of a saint. She didn't offer absolution, just guided me towards that brutal thing called accountability. Months blurred. I worked as a cashier, a brutal fall from executive wife. Each time a customer looked vaguely familiar, panic flared. Yet, slowly, something shifted. The sting of judgment dulled, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. That's how I found myself bumping into Mark at the store. Awkward, stilted conversation about our son, his new house, my nothing much. A pang of jealousy at how seamlessly he seemed to have moved on, but more surprisingly, a grudging acceptance. Was I entitled to wish him misery when I caused my own? Our son looked at me then, truly looked. Not fear or pity, but something calculating. Had Mark painted me the villain? Explained it away in age-appropriate terms? My stomach twisted. Was I already losing him, even with the scraps of motherhood I was allowed? Today, I sit on this park bench, the same one where I used to watch him play. The laughter of kids is a sweet kind of torture. I'm not jealous of the picture-perfect families anymore. Peace? Acceptance? I don't even know what I want, only that the frantic scramble for the next distraction has ended. I've hit the bottom, and the only way left to go is, well, I guess I'll find out. Supervised visitation only, your recent struggles raise concerns about your ability to provide a stable environment. The words hit me like a physical blow. I wanted to scream, to rage at Mark for twisting my mistakes into this monstrous caricature of me. But the judge was already moving on to the next case, and my lawyer was giving me that concerned yet firm look that meant, shut up and accept it. My son, my beautiful, bright boy, now reduced to scheduled hours, my motherhood rationed into blocks on a calendar. Every visit felt like holding a precious glass figurine, terrified that one wrong move would shatter it for good. I became the Disneyland mom, desperate to cram a month's worth of love and fun into a few hours, exhausting myself and probably him. But it was the only way to dull the constant question clawing at my insides. Was I failing him, even as I tried so hard? The job hunt was a bleak wasteland. My impressive resume, once a source of pride, felt like a scarlet letter. Not a good fit, they'd say politely, and I'd see the unspoken, scandalous divorcee hanging in the air. Bills piled up with terrifying speed. My jewelry box emptied piece by piece, the echoes of clinking pawnshop payments a constant soundtrack to my downfall. Sarah, the hotshot executive's wife, was now Sarah, the small-town laughingstock. Old friends. Well, they weren't friends anymore. A quick pity-filled hello in the supermarket, and then they'd scurry off, conveniently forgetting that urgent thing they needed on the other aisle. Worst was the knowing smirk of those I'd never actually liked all that much, their faux sympathy dripping with malicious glee. My parents' help came with a boatload of conditions. Move back in with them until you sort things out. Darling, curfew, safety first, and mandatory work in their bakery. Every honest day's work is a blessing. The sting of retreating to my childhood bedroom defeated me more than the divorce itself. The bakery, my prison of flour and judgmental whispers. Every raised eyebrow with an order, every pursed lip, it all chipped away at what little self-respect I had left. The Sarah who once thrived on meetings and deals now spent her days counting donut orders and avoiding eye contact. Loneliness ate at me. Online dating was an experience. Men ghosted the moment I hinted at the truth, confirming my fear that I was damaged goods. And even on the rare dates with those brave enough to meet, I kept seeing Jake's predatory smile in their eyes, or comparing their kindness to Mark's dependable solidity. There was one though. Michael, kind, steady, with the sort of laugh that made you feel better about the world. I messed it up, of course. One too many glasses of wine, and my story came tumbling out, messy and shameful. His recoil wasn't cruel, more a kind of quiet sadness. As if he'd glimpsed a darkness inside me too deep to fix. My son's birthday felt like a funeral for the life that could have been. My pathetic little gifts paled in comparison to the sleek bike and huge trampoline Mark had gotten him. His excited chatter about his new life, a life I was barely a footnote in, was a knife I willingly twisted inside myself. Nights were the worst. The siren call of the bottle became almost unbearable. One more drink wouldn't change anything. Except it would. It would make it all worse. So I'd sit there, shaking and clenching my fists until the craving subsided, feeling like I'd won some small but brutal battle. Then, that night, the night my resistance finally crumbled. I knew it was wrong, insane even, as I parked outside Mark's house. Their laughter drifted through the open window, a happy family soundtrack to my misery. And there, in the warm yellow glow of his kitchen, was a woman. Normal, kind-looking, everything I wasn't right now. I snapped. I don't remember the drive home, only the empty bottle beside me the next morning, and a despair so thick it felt like the walls were closing in. That was the turning point, though I didn't see it at the time. I woke up in my childhood bed, not just hungover, but hollowed out. The remnants of last night's disastrous drive, the echo of their happy laughter. It wasn't the alcohol-fueled rage that scared me, but the ice-cold realization of how far I'd fallen. A pathetic stalker reduced to lurking outside her ex-husband's house? This wasn't some spicy drama, it was just sad. That afternoon, everything changed. Mrs. Bartlett, my ancient fourth-grade teacher, approached me in the bakery. I tensed, ready for the judgmental head tilt. But she just smiled, that same kind smile that had made nerdy, awkward little Sarah feel seen all those years ago. "You've been through a storm, my dear," she'd said, her voice surprisingly strong for a woman on the verge of her 90s. "But weathering storms, that's what makes us who we are." Then she bought a dozen cookies and left with a wink so incongruous with her old-fashioned appearance that it made me crack a weak smile. The kindness cracked something inside me, not in a dramatic, everything's perfect now way, but like a tiny sliver of light in a very dark room. Could there be people who saw past the gossip, saw the person fighting inside the mess? The next day, the box in my closet mocked me. It held the unopened bottles of liquor, my secret stash from everyone except myself. I could down it all, a final escape from reality. Or I could finally get honest about the ugly truth I was hiding. Therapy wasn't about excuses. It was brutal, poking at the scabs covering my own insecurities, the dissatisfaction that gnawed at me even in those picture-perfect days. It was facing my desperation for excitement, how easy it was to fall for Jake's manipulations because they mirrored my own discontent. The letter to Mark burned in my hands. I wanted his forgiveness, his assurance that I hadn't irrevocably ruined everything. But that was just the selfish part of me talking. This wasn't about him. I owed him an apology not for absolution, but because it was the right thing to do. In the end, I left it on the kitchen counter. Whether he read it, I never knew. My son. That's where things had to change. I baked his favorite cookies, not trying to compete with Mark's gifts, but because it was something I could do. Something filled with love and a tiny hope of repairing the damage. I snuck notes in his lunchbox, silly doodles and inside jokes only we understood. It felt small, so small, but it was honest. News of Jake's trial made me sick to my stomach. Not for me, but for those other women. Then, in a twisted way, there was relief. Proof that he was the monster, not just the figment of my guilt-fueled nightmares. Yet, the shame lingered. How could I have been so blinded, so reckless? The fight with my parents was long overdue. I laid it all out. The guilt and the resentment, how their support felt more like smothering control. They sputtered indignantly, then my mother broke down, admitting that their harshness came from fear, from seeing their perfect daughter fall apart. It wasn't a cozy resolution, but a crack in the wall we built between us. Volunteering at the animal shelter was the opposite of my old life. Instead of power suits and boardrooms, there was fur, slobbery licks, and the stench of cleaning products. But as I scrubbed kennels, a surprising calm settled over me. Here, my past didn't matter. Only if I showed up, did my work, and cared. It was shockingly simple. The job at the plant nursery wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. My hands, once used for polished presentations, now ached from potting plants. Yet, watching things grow, even at that small scale, felt strangely like a metaphor for rebuilding my own life. Michael reached out, an awkward email, saying he understood if I wanted nothing to do with him, but could we at least talk? I hesitated, then agreed. Turns out, kindness doesn't run dry after one confession-fueled mess of a date. It took time, though. Trust had become a word I barely knew the meaning of. A year crept by, some wounds healed, others left battle scars. The bakery became less of a prison, more of a neutral zone where I found my own rhythm. My parents softened, the tension replaced with a cautious understanding. My son, well, we were rebuilding, one clumsy gesture at a time. Mark and I weren't co-parenting buddies. But during one pickup, he nodded and said, "You're trying, Sarah." I see that. It was the biggest victory I could have hoped for. As for romance, well, I dated a bit. No sparks, but no disasters either. Being open about my past was terrifying, but some surprised me with their acceptance. Maybe, just maybe, there was love out there that wasn't built on illusions of perfection. The ending? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Some days, just getting through feels like enough. But there are glimpses now. Glimpses of a life that isn't a punishment, but something I've built on the wreckage of the old one. It's a different kind of strength, and I'm starting to think it might suit me better in